Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa. At age 26, they found abnormal cells in my cervix. I can still remember when my first GYN told me I had HPV. Well, actually, his exact words were, "You have a precancer cell that are due to an STD." He then proceeded to do a very poor drawing of my cervix. He explained very vaguely what HPV was, and then he sent me home with my birth control pills, which were the only reason I had made the appointment in the first place. I found myself trying to understand what was going on. This doctor tells me I have precancer cells. Of course, the only thing I heard was I have cancer. He says I have an STD that will never go away, that even a condom would not help prevent it. And I'm supposed to wait 6 months to see him. What the hell? I'm supposed to just sit down and wait? I have cancer. So that's the thing with cases like mine. You don't have an actual cancer diagnosed. Doctors don't really explain how important it is to follow through. That's why in many cases, women don't follow through. Doctors don't show importance, so the patient doesn't worry, resulting instead of returning in 6 months for their follow-up, they don't return in years when it's kind of too late. That's what happened with my first doctor. I constantly felt like I was bothering him, that he had better patients that he needed to see. I felt alone, and I felt ashamed. I ended up changing doctors to a female, actually. Best decision I ever made. I know. Back in 2005, it wasn't something that was talked about much. The times I did try to explain what I was going through to my friends and family, I would get this look. To the point that I started saying that I had problems in my ovaries instead of HPV. Because back then, nobody knew what HPV was. So the first thing I will have to say, this is something that is caused because of sex. I will lose them. Why? It's sex. You deserve what you're going through. So I will lose them. I get no sympathy. But now I can say, if I hadn't been so persistent, and if I didn't continue with my follow-up, my story could have been different right now. Because in my case, my HPV was persistent as well. Between 2005 and 2010, I had many small procedures. I had several colposcopies, 2 cryotherapies, 3 laser therapies, 1 cone biopsy, and 1 lead procedure. And this is all in less than 5 years. So if you kind of add it up, it means that in less than 6 months, I was getting some procedure done for almost 5 years. I finally received a clear path almost 5 years after my first HPV diagnosis, and that was in November 2010. In February 2011, like 3 or 4 months later, I found out I was pregnant with my second child. I had so many different emotions. I was happy, I was excited, but most of all, I was scared. Why I was scared? Because the doctor had told me that I would be considered high risk. Why? Because of my history with HPV. It comes back again to my life. They said that because of my many procedures I endured, they couldn't guarantee that I was able to carry my son full term. So what happened? I was put in bed rest since I was 12 weeks pregnant. Those of you that know, pregnancy goes to 40 weeks. So as you know, I was sitting in my couch for a long, long time. But fortunately, I was able to have a healthy child. But what if I hadn't been persistent? What if I hadn't changed doctors? What if I never had made that appointment back in 2005 for birth control? What if? Maybe I wouldn't be here today. Or maybe I wouldn't have been able to have my son. That is why it's so important to advocate to women about HPV and cervical cancer. We Hispanics have the higher rate of cervical cancer out of all groups of women. We have the second highest mortality rate after African American women. The more information Latina communities have about HPV and cervical cancer, the faster we can erase the stigma around HPV. But I do have to confess, it took me a long time to feel comfortable to share my story. I felt I didn't have the right to complain about what I went through during that time. I feel I wasn't entitled to share a story. Why? Because I didn't get cancer. I didn't have to get chemo. I didn't have to get radiation. I didn't lose my hair. And I was able to have a child after my HPV diagnosis. In 2008, 2009, I met Tamika. And she will encourage me and will invite me, and she will always kind of pressure me to share my story. I would try to avoid her, but those of you that know Tamika, she's not gonna allow you to avoid her. So until one day, it just came to me. It was just clear on what Survivor is fighting for, and what they're fighting for women not to have to go through a diagnosis of cancer, for a woman not to lose their fertility. Now I proudly accept any chance I get to share my story, with the hopes that by sharing, I could save a woman's life or her fertility by reminding her to get her pap test. This is my Stirrup story, my tale from the speculum. Thank you.